Do you find it really difficult to deal with your kids' big emotions or when your kids are just upset, dysregulated? Sometimes the whining, the crying, does it bother you, or do you tend to just lean right in and know quickly how to comfort and care? Or is it kind of a mixed bag? I know it is lots of times for me. And a lot of that has to do and is explained with our attachment, like the ways in which we were responded to as little kids. And what's beautiful about that is we can actually change that for our kids and change that for ourselves through that parent-child relationship as we learn how to do this. And so we wanted to bring on today an expert on this topic, Eli Harwood. She's called the Attachment Nerd on Instagram, has over 1.5 million followers across all her platforms, and she's got several books that are just fantastic on this subject. And she's such a great storyteller, does a great job of breaking down attachment, really explaining in a way that you can better understand. And I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation and walk away feeling hopeful and empowered, no matter what age your kids are, that you can start helping them have secure attachment and also helping you have earned secure attachment through the steps that she's going to outline and that Sarah and I are going to talk about with her. If you haven't already, please take a moment to stop, pause, rate, review the podcast, leave a comment if this helps you. What kind of attachment style, as you listen to her, do you feel like you have? We'd love to hear that in the comments. And also, if you're listening to this and saying, man, I want me and my spouse, my co-parent to do this differently, well, that's what I'm here to do, is help you be able to do this, understand attachment, understand how the brain works, understand how to create a lifelong relationship with your kids. So go to artofraisinghumans.com, click the coaching tab, and then schedule a consultation with me and to talk about if the program we have is right for you. So I know you're going to enjoy this. You're going to come away so encouraged and more informed on how to love your kids better. And I know that's why you're listening today. So enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello and welcome to The Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah.
And Sarah, I think one of the biggest things that changed how we parent, or really helped me specifically as a dad, focus on parenting differently, was understanding attachment with our kids. And you would not let it go. You kept telling me about how 0 to 3 is like such an important part of their life. And Kyle, it's going to affect the rest of their life. And I thought it was overblown when you were telling me at first. But then as I started to engage it, read about it, study it, see it with our own kids, I saw, man, this attachment thing is such a gift that we can give our kids.
And it's something that we continue through the years.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, we were like, we haven't talked about this in a long time.
We haven't.
Should we talk about this?
Yeah.
Well, we should, but then we should have somebody who's really good at talking about this. And that is Eli Harwood. She is the attachment nerd. If you've not caught her on Instagram, you're missing out. So you definitely need to get on there. So without further ado, I want to welcome Eli. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I mean, anybody who wants to nerd out on attachment with me, I'm in.
Can you do us a favor and just, so our audience, like I said, I'm sure many of them may have heard of it. Some that I see in my practice, they've not heard of it. So I would love for you kind of break down, what do we talk about when we talk about attachment theory? What are the attachment styles? All that kind of stuff.
Okay. So attachment theory developed in the 1950s, and I actually now refer to it as attachment research because it's no longer just a theory. We have incredible data that validates it. But the theory back in the day was, what if the way that human beings develop is related to the relationships that we experience, right? And especially in those early years. And some of those theoreticians, John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, Mary Main, if you're a dork, you might be like, oh, yes, Harry Harlow. They were looking at the specific quality of a child's relationships with their parents and how the quality of that relationship was affecting the way the child was developing and then how they did later on in life. And we have 70 years of incredible research that's been replicated. For those of you who are not nerds, this is really important because somebody can do a study on something and say, oh, here's the
Yes.
claim.
Yeah.
But if it's not done again and again and again in different contexts and different times with different variables in terms of who's being studied, then we don't know for sure. Was that just a one-off? Was it just that study itself? Or was this really revealing something true?
Yeah.
And so this body of research has been validated and replicated enough that we know it's not just a theory. The way that a child develops is deeply affected by the way that their caregivers relate to them. So attachment is the dynamic between a caregiver and a child, the quality of a relationship. And that dynamic is not just early on, it's throughout the entire lifespan, and it expands. As a child grows, it expands beyond caregivers into friends, eventually into sweethearts, community. It's our close relationships. And so my goal in nerding out on the research and sharing about it with parents is to really help parents feel confident that when you are creating a quality relationship with your child, you're not coddling them. You're not, being too soft on them. You're actually giving them the ideal environment to help their brain develop.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes, love that. Okay, I want to jump right into, can you explain what are the different types?
Yeah.
As they're out there, I'm sure people, maybe they're familiar with them, but I think it's really helpful to look at, what are we talking about? What does this mean?
Okay. Yes. So first I want to say that the internet often popularizes things without nuance. So those of you who have heard of attachment before, you might have heard someone saying attachment styles, and they're talking about this is what your style is what, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's really appealing from like an easy, quick thing to understand.
Yeah.
What I want parents to know, however, is that there's two different bodies of research. So one of those bodies of research kind of looks at like, how do you relate to your romantic partner in adulthood? How would we call that? That's the style. But when we're looking at parenting and children, the research is actually done on a relationship. So we're really looking at how does a child respond to a parent based on how the parent has been responding to the child?
Yes.
And most of the information we have from this comes from a study by Mary Ainsworth called The Strange Situation. And what that study discovered is that there are generally 4 patterns that a child engages in relationship to their parent when they feel distressed or tender. So that's all very specific. Attachment is what helps children survive a period of their time where they're vulnerable to injury, they're vulnerable to starvation, they can't feed themselves, they can't protect themselves. So there's this instinct absolutely ingrained in every human child to want proximity to a caregiver as a way to survive those early years. But not all caregivers have the skills to make that process feel comfortable and reliable. And so these 4 patterns are based on the caregiver's ability. So if you, as a parent, are able to be predictably responsive, warm, and sturdy. So when your kids are crying, when they're scared, when they're upset, you notice it. You say, I'm here, I see you, you acknowledge it, and you can stay calm enough in your body for them to borrow your calmness. So they come running into your arms, mama, and you pick them up and you hold them and you're able to say, I'm here, I see what you feel, I can handle what you feel. If that is the typical pattern in your relationship, no one does this all the time, but if that's the typical pattern in your relationship, a child will develop what we call a secure attachment pattern. And basically what that pattern boils down to is when they feel emotionally dysregulated, they seek you out for support. So it's reaching and it's clinging and then it's receiving what you give. And so you and that child get to cultivate this beautiful dance where you're helping their limbic system. But we call this limbic resonance, where you're helping them regulate and feel safe. And actually neuroscience has shown that is thickening the executive functioning parts of their brain.
Great.
And it is reducing the size of their reactivity brain. So this is our goal. And we're all working towards this. The other 3 categories one we call an avoidant pattern. So this is what a child does when a caregiver is predictably ineffective at soothing.
Yeah.
So that might be somebody who is uncomfortable with emotions, so they ignore emotions. That might be somebody who is deeply preoccupied with emotions, and so they're always coming in hot with anxiety. But the point is, the child learns, I feel worse when my caregiver comes near me. So the best way to cope with my dysregulation is to hide it and distract myself. So the secure baby says, I feel tender, I'm distressed, I'm going to reach for my caregiver and receive their care. The avoidant baby says, I feel tender and distressed, I'm going to hide it so that this person in my life doesn't make it worse. And so that I don't burden other people with this emotional information. People will often think, oh, that's just a really chill kid. And there are chill kids. Chill kids exist. But the avoidant child, we know, they don't show outwardly signs of distress, even though they're having them inwardly. So we've done like cortisol tests, we've done stress tests on their skin, looked at urine in their diapers. I mean, we've done the whole 9 yards. They have the same stress response. They just don't express it. So we call that an avoidant pattern. And why they're doing that, I want people to really understand this. They're not avoiding attachment. They are maintaining proximity to a caregiver who can't handle emotional dysregulation.
That's good.
I need you still. I know you can't handle what I feel, but I need you near me. And so this is the best way I know how to keep you near me, is to not need much from you. Okay. Third category, we would call a resistant or ambivalent pattern. And this is when a caregiver is sometimes able to be emotionally soothing and effective, but not enough to be predictable. So this might be a parent who's really struggling with undiagnosed, unmedicated bipolar disorder, or has a drug and alcohol substance use dynamic, or is in an abusive relationship, or there's some, bouts of depression. The child has some understanding that sometimes my parent can help me in these moments, but they also have some understanding that sometimes they don't. And I don't know why or what is happening. I just know that it's unpredictable. So this child develops a coping pattern where they are constantly clingy and constantly aware of their caregiver. That secure child, they seek their caregiver, they get soothed, and then they go back to playing with their toys. Then they go back to exploring the world. The avoidant child never seeks, they just play. Right? The world is the only thing they can focus on. This resistant or ambivalent child is so full of anxiety that it's very hard to play and explore because they feel like it's their job to keep their eyes on the prize. I've got to make sure that I'm watching you and what you feel so that I can give you what I think you might want from me so that you will stay close because I feel responsible to make you stay close to me. Okay. Then the last category is little bugs who have caregivers who are frightening. In some way. And so that can be abusive patterns, that can be like deep undiagnosed mental illness like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. That could be neglect, profound neglect. When a child's caregiver is a source of threat, it disorganizes their attachment instincts. Those other 3 categories are all organized. The secure kid says, I'm going to seek help and receive it. The avoidant kid says, I'm going to keep my stuff inside and regulate through disconnection. And that resistant child says, I'm going to cling for my life. When your caregiver is frightening, those organizations don't work. So nothing I do works. And so I feel unsafe. So those little nuggets are left with a profound sense of fight, flight, freeze, faint, and fawn in response to distress. It's painful. It's trauma. It's deep developmental
very
trauma.
Sad.
How could you speak to, I think something that I've tried to work hard knowing kind of how I grew up and at times how I had one caregiver who was more the secure attachment type and the other one who I did avoid and did not do that. Right. And so, my goal has been in my marriage, but then also with my kids is to have, what I've read about, heard about, talked about, the earned secure type. Okay. Could you speak to that about how, because that gave me a lot of hope of like, it doesn't have to be this way. And then that's actually what got me really sold into it, was Sarah was like, as we do this well with our kids, it does also heal that thing in us. It heals that. And that's, I think, is so beautiful about parenting, is I've seen myself heal and grow by loving and being there for my kids in ways that maybe I wasn't loved and cared for. And that's been so powerful.
Yeah. So a couple things. So there's almost two questions.
Yeah.
The first question is, the human child has the advantage of multiple caregivers. And we have something that's also called allo caregiving, which is we can receive care from people that we are not biologically related to. What a gift.
Yeah, agree.
That's why we can, teachers play a role, nannies, babysitters, grandmas, aunties, everybody, uncles. So children develop specific relationships. So a child can have a secure relationship with one parent and an insecure relationship with another parent, or an insecure with both, but of two different flavors. That was my childhood. I had an avoidant dynamic with my dad, who was a functional alcoholic, had no ability to give regulation and support, and a ambivalent resistant dynamic with my mom, who had unresolved childhood trauma and went through bouts of depression. So the reality of attachment is not you become one thing. And I think that's part of what the internet kind of boils it down to. A lot of people will be in dating relationships and they're like, I guess this means I'm this. And I'm like, well, what was it like in a different dating relationship? And they're like, oh, it was different. I'm like, well, let's look at why and what's happening in the dynamic. But all that to be said, there is no point in anybody's journey where it's sealed, signed, and delivered. So if you and your child, if you're listening to this and you're going, ooh, I have not focused on that. I have focused on behavior. I have focused on respect. I have done everything I can to make my child a well-mannered, good kid. And I have not really thought about how they feel when they're tender and coming to me. And man, they don't come to me. That it's not too late. You can shift that dynamic. That's why I also became obsessed with the research, is because it's like, oh, this is hopeful. If I work on my patterns, which is about understanding my patterns, where they came from, why they developed, and then learning how to be more emotionally present, grounded, secure, open, my child will adapt to that. Kids are so good at picking up on that type of information. Like, whoa, something changed in dad. He's all of a sudden more understanding. He's more tender. He's more present, was a word that you were using earlier, Sarah. And I think that's important. So I want parents not to go, what style am I? I want you to go, what relationship am I cultivating with my children? And what skills am I currently using? And do they belong here, or are they from the past? And if they're from the past, because, avoidance is a skill. Hypervigilance is a skill. But those were skills you needed in a different circumstance. So what's the skill I need now? And how do I develop that so that my kids can gain skills from me they can use throughout their whole life instead of just with me?
I love, there's so many little pieces that are floating around in my head from what you just said. I love that, early on when our kids were born, I was really like, got to do this in the young years. But the great hope, and as we continue with this, was it was a while ago, how much it's something that's rolling through life. And I love that because it gives hope to parents who look back and feel, you can feel that. Even where I think, oh, I kind of messed that up. You can feel this guilt, like you've blown it with your kid. And to know that it doesn't matter what age they are, it can always shift. And I worked with some beautiful families for many, many years who because of how they grew up, had learned these survival skills, had learned how to move through life in this way. And then suddenly realizing that it wasn't working, it wasn't getting them where they wanted to be now, and it wasn't creating the relationship they wanted with their children. And as that hits you, it can hit really hard. And so I love your message of hope and that forward look of when you notice that about yourself, that's not your written story. It's something that you can create and move forward in the way you want to go, to build the relationship you want with your child, to build those patterns with your child that you want to. wonder if you can kind of speak to, because when that can hit you or when you start to see that, it can feel a little overwhelming of what do I do? I mean, this is new, or maybe I know a little bit about it, but I'm just not sure about the step to take. Because you know, as parent, you feel, oh no, I've got to fix this today, you know? So
Yes.
I just wonder if you can kind of speak to that a little bit, because I know we've been on a journey, still on a journey.
Sure.
You talk a little bit about your journey and the work you're doing inside yourself. So can you speak to that a little bit? I just want to give hope to parents and realize it is a process, and
Yes.
people like us are out there doing it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. No one is not doing it.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
there's no like parenting expert out there who, you know, every single day they are attuned and responsive and regulated. That's not a thing.
Exactly.
And our kids are ever evolving. And so, you know, there's an ongoing education, like thinking of parenthood as a stage of education in your life, and you're learning about who your individual children are, you're learning about yourself, and you're learning about what the relationship needs from you. So if you're listening to this and you've gone into that panic mode where you're like, oh my gosh, this is not how I've thought about it. Or I've thought about it like this, but I'm just not sure that I'm doing it right, or my kids are getting what they need. I've made a couple of paper parents for people, is what I call my books.
Okay. Yes.
Because, you know, ideally we learn this stuff in relationship. You know, having a therapist can be really helpful. You know, I have a parenting group as well. People can join. And if you can't afford it, I don't care. I have a pay what you can option. You know, so looking for resources, looking for books that you can absorb that help you really understand it. But I would say, don't overreact. Like, your job isn't to go leave this podcast, go to your children and be like, I failed you. I'm so sorry.
Your
Let me
attachment
fix
sucks
this.
because of me.
Yeah, that's not going to be helpful. It's actually just going to replay the same dynamic, because they're like, once again, you need me to take care of you. You really want to get into an understanding of your story. So all of us evolved in these relationships. And that is best done with other people, truly. So if you don't have a therapist or a partner or a mentor or a community, come join the Secure Parent program. But find other people who can witness with you and help you work through how you were related to. What were the messages you learned about your needs and your emotions and what relationships are for? And then you have to grieve. Most of us run very fast from an awareness of what those relationships were like if they weren't secure, because it's painful to really look at it and go, wait a minute, when I was sad, you know, my dad said, like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Or like Eli, when I was in college, broke up with a girlfriend, and it's been 2 weeks. My dad said, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just kind of down. He said, are you still whining about the girl? And I remember feeling this feeling like, I'm not going to talk to you about anything again. It's like, no more. You get access to my heart.
Right. And how different would that moment have been if he had gone, I'm so sorry.
I know.
How are you doing? How's that affecting you? You know, like, I've been through heartache too, and it sucks. Like, what do you need? Do we need to go get ice cream?
That's right. Yes.
Ice cream is a very excellent,
of course. It's a great way to heal
for many
things.
At
any time.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so what did you grow up in? And giving yourself some of the space to really process that, because when you offer that tenderness to yourself and you receive it from other people, it makes the process of giving it to your children far more authentic and natural. It's not a panic, oh crap, I messed it up response. It's I know what it feels like to be cared for and understood. And I want to give that to you now too. So finding people who can teach you what it feels like to be cared for, so that you know how to care for your kids.
Well, and what I love about
huge.
that, Eli, is what happened in our marriage. And this is something that when we're coaching parents, we're telling them, the conflicts that arise with our kids, all too often what you see, we end up helping kids who are going through divorce. And lots of times those divorces happen because conflict arose that the parents didn't know how to resolve with each other. And then they want us to tell the kid, it's not your fault. But it seems like it is your fault because these problems weren't there until you came. you know? And that's, and
Mm.
so what I was kind of, once Sarah and I bought into this idea and understood how we wanted to parent and the vision we had, I was like, I think these moments, these conflicts with the kids are actually there to strengthen us, like to help us
Mm.
understand each other better. And if you have a partner you can do this with, well, what that looked like for us was like every time I overreacted to something, and Sarah would do really good of when we came back to resolve that conflict that we had, she would say, you know, and we're kind of borrowing this from Brene Brown, but she was like, what's the story you're telling yourself? You know, what's the story? And then as I revealed that story, it helped me better understand myself and her understand me. And then she could reveal, and typically we were misreading the story altogether. But as we took the time to actually communicate that, then, oh man, that became such a tool with our kids. And then now our kids, they don't think their conflicts make mom and dad turn against each other. They think their conflicts help mom and dad grow together and
I love
help us
this.
be. Yeah, so then the kids are like, oh, it's okay to have problems because mom and dad know what to do with them. And it's actually going to bring more intimacy in our marriage rather than more isolation, which is what it tends to do. And so that's where I hope any listener who's listening to this will understand. That's just a simple thing to do. It's just like, what's the story you're telling yourself? And that goes back to what you're saying of just kind of you reflecting on that and better understanding where that story began and how it's informing your behavior.
Yes. Yes. And reflection is in the research, we call this reflective function. It's a massive part of secure relationships. So when we can pause in an emotional moment, in a misunderstanding, and we can reflect, what's happening for me? What's happening for my child? Then we are far more likely to repair and reconnect during that conflict and make that a positive strength building interaction than to, throw feces and push each other down, into the slides of blame, shame, and distance.
Yeah.
I like to say, and so this is in my first book, Raising Securely Attached Kids. There's a chapter called Secure Conflict. And I like to say that all conflict is an opportunity for discovery.
Love that. Yes.
And we don't all have that experience growing up. And so another point of reflection is, what was conflict? What did I learn about conflict growing up? In some households, conflict is not allowed. We must only be nice and pretend. And so we engage in denial and avoidance. In other households, conflict is an excuse for abuse. Now that we disagree, I am justified in calling you names, in punishing you, in stonewalling you. So that experience leads someone to believe that all conflict is dangerous. Conflict is where we hurt each other. And so I think how we model as parents, conflict is going to become an internal story for our kids. What does conflict mean? What's the meaning of it? I mean, it's always hard and it's uncomfortable, but if I'm learning something and you're learning something together, then conflict is an opportunity to get closer as well as a hard time.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that's why those early years are so helpful because there's so much conflict in those early years. And for me, it was just the lack of sleep the kids were getting and the way they kept waking up at night. And I remember how I dealt with it with my oldest, Abby, was just like, stop waking up. Like I just was so mad about it. And I almost felt like God himself was like keeping me from sleeping. And I just put the baby to sleep. And then by my third, I had this like aha moment where I was holding my youngest, Ellie, and she had had a rough night that night. And by then my confidence as a dad had grown. I wasn't feeling so insecure. I knew my love with Sarah was safe and secure as well. And so I was able to be up at night and I wasn't freaking out. And as I was holding Ellie during a sleepless night, the thought hit me like, how would Ellie ever know I loved her without these nights? And how would I ever be able to like, how would she ever know? How would I ever know that she loves me, right? Without us bonding in these moments, like this moment is actually pivotal for my parenting. That without this moment, I don't get opportunities to help wire them to know that I will be there in the darkest of nights when you're crying and screaming. I'll be there. And I just thought this night's actually beautiful. Why was I so mad before?
Well, you were sleep deprived. I mean, and everyone is affected by that differently, and so I think, and you had expectations. So many people have expectations that as a parent, I'm going to teach and train my child the correct actions starting day one. And that's a really naive understanding of brain development. Children aren't cognitively processing for a very long time, honestly. It takes a long time for them to start making connections. So those early years, they're hard on parents because you're not getting enough
Yeah.
sleep, because there
Yeah.
is a constant need,
Yeah.
but also because parents often have unrealistic expectations about what babies can and can't do.
Yeah.
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 So if, I've seen a lot of parents when, they're dealing with sleep, and I just say, oh, did you know that's actually completely
Yes.
normal? And that kids walk at different stages of life, just like they learn to sleep.
That is
And the parents are like, oh,
I know.
it's like, remove the I'm doing something
Yes.
wrong,
Right.
or my kid is
Yes.
doing something
Yeah.
wrong. It's like, yeah, sleep is hard. And we don't, modern life is not the ideal environment for mental health for young
Yeah.
parents
Yeah.
and children.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not.
It's not. No.
Yeah.
It's not. And so, that's hard. We are still wired. I say this, we're wired for attachment, but we were wired for attachment in the context of a village
Yeah.
Yeah.
and communal rhythms.
Yeah.
If you've ever had the experience of like being with your family in like a camp setting or like a group
Yeah.
setting,
Yeah.
where it's like, here's what dinner time
Yes.
is, here's what bedtime is, here's what this activity is. Kids thrive in those environments because everyone is in the same participation
Yep.
space.
Yeah. That's so good.
I mean, granted, that can be overstimulating
Of
for
course.
neurodivergent
Yeah.
kids. There,
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
exceptions and
Sure.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff. But in general, one of the hardest parts about parenting babies, toddlers, and young kids is you
Yeah.
are the structure.
Yeah.
So it is you constantly saying, and now it's time for this, and now time for that. And that is one nervous system regulating everybody instead of a group of nervous systems regulating everybody. And that it just takes more effort,
So
So you're tired.
Yeah, so that leads me to my next question that I think comes up a lot for couples and families, and if you're co-parenting with someone, and with that feeling of, okay, I'm kind of learning about this, I'm kind of trying to steer things a different direction, and I'm noticing that my style, my patterns differ a lot from the person that I'm parenting with.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that because I see what I'm doing and trying to do and where I'm messing up or trying to change things, but then the other person's doing a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And when those two dances are very, very different in the same home or even couple homes, but with these kids in a major part of these kids' lives, what do I'd love your feedback, thoughts on that to share, because I know that's a real big one for parents.
A lot of people. So I would say this, there is an evolutionary advantage in marrying someone who's very different than you are and having kids with them. They have skill sets you don't have.
Yep.
And so the goal is never for you to become the exact same parent, but it is to be clear on what your values are together and what some of your goals are for your children. And so, thinking about that in terms of like, how do we get on the same page, even if we're writing different things on that page? I think it becomes a big problem for kids when it is creating a heightened sense of conflict and like power struggles between parents. I would argue, based on the data, the one place I do want you to do everything you can to be on the same page with is in being highly responsive, present, connected, relational in terms of how you're interacting with your children, especially when they're tender or in distress. Because that being able to create an environment where kids can rely on both of you will help for those moments when mom is just freaking fried and done up to here, and or dad is like, whoa, my trauma is triggered and I can't interact. Because then kids can use each of you. So the more adults with a skill set for relational connection, the more protective factors there are in that child's development. So, but let's say we are never getting this other partner on the same page with that. As long as they are not abusive, then part of what your job is as a parent is to be like, well, I'm going to give my kids that, and I'm going to actually benefit from that. My kids are going to come to me. I'm going to be the one who knows when they broke up with their college sweetheart. I'm going to be the one that they ask for advice from. And that will be sad for my partner, but my partner can always choose to engage in that, and I can say, hey, I'd love to tell you what I'm doing and why I think they come to me. If you want that information, that's probably not going to be the moment in time that person says, yes, I want to do that. Like some of that is like are you ready? Are you ready? Because a lot of times people don't want to become relational with their kids because if I do, it means I have to be sad about not having gotten that from my own
Yes.
Yeah.
parents. I think
Yes.
it's a grief
Wow.
opener.
Yeah, that's good.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think I
Yeah.
like what you had kind of pointed to earlier. The couple things we can't choose it for the other person,
Yeah.
right? We can choose it for ourselves, and we can decide how we're going to show up and be with our children. And sometimes we want so badly to control that or something, and we can't. We can just offer, but that's it. But you earlier talked about how children will develop multiple attachments, right?
Yes.
So even if we're the one person who's showing up for our children that way, they're still getting that from us. That's still something they
Yes.
can carry into life.
Yeah.
And I love the
Yep.
hope that brings, because sometimes you can be very worried, depending on the situation, a divorce or something, where you're really concerned about your kids. But the hope that exists that if I do the work and I'm showing up for my kids that way, they're benefiting from that. That's something they can carry on in life.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. I mean, and that is what the data says. If there is at least one caregiver
Yeah.
who is able to offer that sense of safe haven and secure base. And safe haven just means you make me feel better when I'm in distress. And secure base means you can tolerate and cheer me on when I want to go explore the world.
Yeah.
Right. So, and when a kid has one person that they have that experience with, that internalizes very deeply. And it kind of acts as a buffer for the other negative relationships as well.
Yeah.
Because, if you have one dynamic that feels secure, it's easier to look at the other one and go, this is off.
Yeah.
If you have no dynamics that feel secure, you don't have that same protective factor,
Yeah.
because you just know something's uncomfortable all the time. And kids tend to conclude at that point, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Why don't I feel good? So yes, you work on your dynamic.
And what I want to encourage all the listeners too is I definitely had that with my mom, the secure attachment where I knew my mom, I could always go to her. Anytime there was a breakup or I was scared or worried, she was always a great listener. Didn't have it with my dad. But I think having it with my mom helped me be able to get into a marriage with somebody I could have it with. And if I hadn't had either one of them, I wouldn't have even known what that felt like. So along the way, as I dated, I was like, oh no, this isn't the same. I need someone in my life who's able to do that too. And I want to point out as well, there were these aha moments, because I know lots of times it can be it's not gender specific, but in a lot of the work we're doing, lots of it's the dads who have a hard time being okay with the weakness that their kid is showing or the sadness. I know it does trigger me at times too, because you feel like you've got to I'm okay with crying, but enough's enough. Kind of, you got to feel like you got to do it. Yeah.
You've seen the violence that can be aimed at a person for being vulnerable. And I mean, now we're talking the problems of patriarchy.
Yes.
Because when we teach boys at very young ages, you are no longer an emotional creature, you've got to shut it down and be tough. We rob them of the ability to tolerate emotional states.
Yeah.
So what I say to men is here's the irony. You think it's weak to cry, but actually, if you teach your kids not to cry, what you've just done is weakened their ability to tolerate emotional states. And then they are more likely to act out and shut down and use substances. So your strength that you're giving your kids is you're teaching them, I can handle what you feel, which means you can handle what you feel, which means you will have more emotional resilience as a result. And when feelings come in, you won't panic with shame and shut down and blow up. You'll just feel your feelings, work through them, figure out what you need, and move on.
And there was an aha moment I had with that, where I used to, as a dad, kind of judge Sarah when the kids seemed to cry more with her. And I know that's like that. Like the kids were always crying. And then I'd kind of be like, they don't do that with me. I'd be like, what a badge of honor. And Sarah would be like, yeah, but that's not good. Like they should be able to cry with both of us. And I remember I watched, it was some war movie that had come out. I watched it with some buddies of mine. And I'm sitting outside the theater with all these guys. We're chatting about the war movie. Oh, that was a pretty good movie. And then as we're getting in the car, I call up Sarah. I say, hey, I'm heading home. And she goes, how was the movie? And as soon as Sarah said that, I just began to cry. And there was parts in the movie that really, and then I said to her, is this what you do to the kids? Is this what you do? I was just fine a minute ago. And she's like, all I did was say, how was the movie? I'm like, I know it's the way you asked it. You asked it in such a caring way. And that's when I realized I want that skill. I want my kids to know dad can ask that question that way too.
I mean, what she did was she said, your internal world matters to me. I want to know your experience of this, and I mean, that's life's greatest
Yeah.
gift, is to be trustworthy enough for the people we love to show us their full, unedited self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, and here is the truth. It is a messier process as a parent. So raising secure kids is messier than raising avoidant
Yes.
kids. It's messier than
Good
raising
point.
True.
because if I teach you that what your inner world is signaling to you is important and that it matters to me, then that gets space and airtime while I'm trying to put the dishes away,
Yeah.
while I'm trying to get you all to camp.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. When it's
it's
bedtime.
messier.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's bedtime and all the emotions are coming
That's
out.
when
it's
they
yeah.
they love, something that if you give them that minute at bedtime, you'll just
know.
all the things you didn't realize were happening in the day start tumbling out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's a really good point to point out. Yeah.
But it's messier at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it gives you a more clear, coherent understanding of what your role is and what you want to do. And then it's easier in the long run.
Yeah.
Because in the long run, I'm just thinking of my son this week. He has a group of boyfriends who when they hang out, they get a little rowdy in a way that he doesn't love,
Yeah.
like kind of manic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was able to be like, once this other kid comes into the mix, I don't really want to be here anymore. And so his friends continued to hang out, and he came home and he called other friends and did other things. And I spent so many hours. I mean, I wish we could calculate. It's probably thousands and thousands of hours in his younger years responding to his emotional cues, teaching him to notice them and what they're called and what they are. And I'm honestly feeling pretty judged by other parents of boys in different settings. Like, kind of like, "Are you gonna let him do that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna let him do that." But I watched one of his peers actually recently said to me, "Well, we don't cry anymore." He said that about their age boys. "We don't cry anymore." And Slate goes, "Mom, tell them what you told me." And I'm like, well, the less you cry, the less joy you feel.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is like opening that up. And he has an advantage over his peers because he has felt. And I had a disadvantage over my peers during certain years because I was attending to those feelings instead of shutting them down and moving on. That would have been so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. You put in that work. And I love the beauty of the relationship moving as they get older and older, and how it builds that foundation that keeps going through the years. And for us, a big goal of ours is to have, my 16-year-old come to me. I want my 20-year-old to come to me. I want my 25-year-old to come to me. And the work we're doing each day now makes that possible and keeps that relationship through the years. And that part of it, now that we've been doing this work and my oldest is 16 and then I can see like, oh, here it is. It's, it's the relationship I wanted, the relationship I work for and continue to work for.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Yeah. And I want to wrap up with this. You have a new book and we love the title. So how to deal with how do you say, how to deal with your...
I usually beep it out because we didn't put any swear words on it because I'm like, this is a parenting book. We don't need a book with swear words on the cover, but it's how to deal with your poop so your kids don't have to as much.
Yes.
An encyclopedia for ditching your emotional baggage. Basically, I used the term paper parent before, but I think when you didn't have an emotionally secure present parent to learn from, you probably have a more primal response to your emotional states, whether that's you swim in them and you feel overwhelmed and you can't shut them down, or whether that's you avoid them or they just make you freeze. So this book has an encyclopedia style where how do I deal with feeling anxious? How do I deal with feeling angry? How do I deal with feeling rejected by my children? They want the other parent more than me, and that triggers something in me. How do I deal with feeling jealous of my children? When we break cycles, there's an odd experience of, like I worked very hard to create an income bracket for my kids so they wouldn't have to struggle in the same way I did when I was little, where it was like, are there going to be enough groceries?
Oh, yeah.
But then my kids don't understand the amount of privilege they have. And so then, I have my own feelings about that where it's like, oh, but okay. So anyway, the book is set in a topical organization so that you can go to it during a moment you are overwhelmed and go, what is happening for me? What is this emotion? What does it mean? How can I learn to regulate it? What can I teach my kids about it? And then there's further reading on each topic as well. So, if you're reading through one of those and you're going, oh, this is going to be harder than the 5 pages that Eli just gave me. I need more. Here's the books you're going to read next. And, bad habits, things like a blaming habit or a control habit or a permissive habit. How do I break these habits that are about the generational inheritance that I got so that my kids have a secure dynamic with me? So that's out now. You can also read Raising Securely Attached Kids. I have a mother-daughter journal and a mother-son journal that you can use called Uniquely Us, to just help build some of those conversations between the two of you. It's fun too. Like some of the questions are, entertaining and there's like little suggestions for activities. That's great for if you have kids that are like between 8 and 15.
Okay, perfect.
If you have like a deeply relational older child, they're great. They're not like too young, but it's just that's a good window to catch kids in for journaling with you. And then the Secure Parent Program. So if you are, wanting some extra support on that, there's that. I have a podcast too now called How to Deal. Can you tell that I am an overachiever and that I put my value in productivity? Great.
Yes. Yeah, I can relate. Yeah. And what I love about what you're doing and the work that we're trying to do along with you too is too often, like you said, we grew up without much, similar to you. It was always a struggle, right? And we don't want that for our kids. We want to make sure we're investing in our education. So obviously we all went and got educated. We're investing in learning how to use money, learning how to actually not not just grip onto it like with dear life, but actually try to do something with it. We're learning how to even create networks and relationships. So all those things we did intentionally, but it didn't hit me until we had the kids. They're like, oh, there's another legacy that I want to leave for them. And it is this attachment legacy. It is the ability for them to know how to make relationships that are healthy and they can trust the attachment. And man, that's, I think so many parents don't think about that. They think about the other, they're trying to eat healthy. They're trying to exercise, but but how are you responding when the kid is in distress? That's actually going to help them have better marriages and be in better jobs and so forth.
And actually have better health. We know it's related to health outcomes too. Less cardiovascular disease in people who have had secure relational experiences in childhood.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's really cool. Yeah. So I love it. I love your work. So glad to be here with you all.
Well, and what's all the ways, if they want to know more about your work, where can they find you?
Attachmentnerd.com is my website. I run my mouth for free on the internet at Attachment Nerd. Pretty much anywhere you look on the internet. And you can find my books wherever you buy books. So Amazon, or if you like to go to an indie bookstore, you can go to them and say, hey, can you order, Eli Harwood's books for me? However you want to get them.
And you recently on your Instagram just had a great reel. I love that reel of grandmother reading the book and then the mom reading the book and then you. That was fantastic because that does describe kind of the generational shift that we hope we're at the forefront of and helping parents get there to make this world a much safer place. Okay. So thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate you giving the time and look forward to seeing your continued work going forward.
You too.
Bye-bye.
The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.